Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to, I believe this is episode number 9, almost getting to double digits. Today, we have a very dear friend of mine. I'll have her introduce herself, but the one and only Miss Anna Dove. Anna,
Hi, Bruce.
how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. It's nice and early, and it's the weather outside doesn't look too nice. It's
I know.
a little frightful.
Yeah, it is. It is. But no, I'm doing well, and thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's a great podcast, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So my name's Anna Dove. I have a background in a couple different areas. I graduated with a degree in international studies in Spanish. I've spent the last 5 years kind of in a combination working in both the private sector and the public sector. I've started out in an immigration law firm in New York, which is actually where I became friends with Bruce. I have worked in a nonprofit focused on free market economics. I've worked for a member of Congress and for state government in Maryland. And I'm a research scholar with the National Churchill Librarian Center. And in my free time, I lead a grassroots. I lead a grassroots like political organization in my home county. So it's a busy life, but it's a good life.
Yeah, and some point in between there, you managed to. I mean, I gotta just definitely throw this out. You published a book.
Oh yeah,
just insane. I have it over there. It's called Midnight.
Yes, it's a political thriller. It's very interesting. Yeah,
political thriller. So I always had to mention that. Say, oh yeah, I know someone who's published. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it sold 50 copies. So yes, technically it's published.
There you go. I mean, hey, you're making your way in the market, and sometimes it's not friendly, but I definitely recommend. I'll put a link.
Yes, everybody go read it. It's a political thriller. It's about an electromagnetic pulse that hits the United States and kind of what happens to all the supply chains and people trying to survive in that, and kind of it's super interesting. So
what's incredible though is, I don't know if this had to be a fiction though, just real quick, because what was it? All the social medias, I guess, were out. What was it? I think.
Yeah.
Or not all of them. I think it was mainly Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. Yeah.
Baby.
Honestly.
EMP.
Yeah. No. When that happened, I was like,
Did I manifest this?
Like what? Maybe I shouldn't have written that book.
It's probably your fault, Anna. But
it's probably my fault. Yep, not Mark Zuckerberg, definitely me.
No, not Mark. Not Marky.
No, but but I also something that's very passionate that I'm passionate about, and that I kind of just tend to like research on my own time, and that I kind of wanted to talk about today. Is I am really interested in what are the factors in the individual's life that they can control that can contribute to them having the most prosperous, successful, healthy, happy, joyful, full life as possible as they possibly can. And today I wanted to kind of address specifically like the health aspect of that. I know it's a conversation that is being had a lot right now. Like, what is health? What is individual health? What is community health? And health is something that's both personal and corporate. It affects us individually, and it also affects populations. There's snowball effects if individuals are failing to attend to their, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. It affects not only the individual but everybody as a whole. As an example, like if we're not understanding and prioritizing and kind of working on fixing mental illness problems, we're gonna have more violent crimes as a whole. So there's very real concrete impacts to individuals, either not having the knowledge of how to address their health or not choosing to do it. And so that's something I'm very passionate about kind of in my personal life, is just seeing how can we educate and empower people to take control of their health in a way that affects both them and their local community and the greater country as a whole. So I was hoping to get into that today, and I also there's tons of factors that contribute to each category of health, so I'm not going to talk about like every single one.
Let's start out with, how do we define health, right? I mean, there's many different ways to do it. How do we go about it, saying, oh, I feel healthy? What does that mean? And do you actually feel healthy? Or is it just a cover to feel great? You have energy.
Well, I think that's a really good point, because there's I think there's a lot of false narratives about what health is. Like, for example, like the fad diet kind of thing. When you see someone who's like physically fit, it seems to be, there's a huge difference between being physically fit on the outside and being actually healthy on the inside. And I think that's a huge factor that I kind of wanted to get into today. But I think health, like I said, there's kind of like the 4: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. So I think I would define health as having a balanced perspective and investment in each of those 4 categories. It's not just what you look like on the outside. Actually, what you look like on the outside is generally kind of like, it's tied. It's not 100% correlated, but it is almost like a reflection of what you're investing in those 4 categories, which are internal.
Right.
So yeah, how would you define health?
No, that's great. And I like how you broke it down into it's not just being on the outside, because you can have someone who's absolutely ripped, let's just say muscle ripped,
Right.
and on the inside, I mean, they have what's leading them to probably get heart disease in the future, all different, I mean, maybe even diabetes, just totally tough. Well, for myself, I mean, my definitions change and they fluctuate, but one that I really liked recently is that health is energy, right? And it's overall the energy, not just like, oh, I'm so hyped, I'm so energetic. It's what is the health of your cells that's in your body?
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Yeah, what are your nutrients like? Because those correlate to the energy you have. And like, what's your breathing like, right? If your breathing is also sturdy and strong, you're gonna have more energy just off the bat.
Yep.
So
actually, regulated breathing controls so many systems. It helps regulate and calm so many systems in your body too. So that's a really good point about breathing.
To regulate it. No, that's right. And it's not just an Eastern Himalayan thought process, but we like to categorize things saying familiar, unfamiliar. Oh, if it's familiar, I like it. Unfamiliar, get it out of here.
No, absolutely. And that's why I'm really excited to talk about this stuff today, because our culture has kind of, I think, just skipped over a lot of things that are really important when it comes to health. And it's not super complicated. And so it's just great for people to just know, like, here's some very basic things that you can understand about what contributes to these 4 factors that I see in your life, and the things that you can contribute to making that better. Yeah. So
let's dive in. Let's dive in.
Sounds good.
I'm excited to hear a lot about it.
So I kind of wanted to focus today on one specific connection called the gut-brain axis. And it's less the correlation between what you eat and your physical health, because there's a lot of knowledge, I think, generally about what you eat impacts your physical health in very real ways. And you can see that, and there's a large conversation about that. What people don't necessarily have a ton of knowledge about is actually how what you eat impacts your mental health. And that's kind of this specific connection that I wanted to focus on today. And again, the point of me talking about this is not to make people feel bad about themselves or anything. I just want to try to like inform people so that they can, and empower them to make these like small changes in their life that seriously has such a huge impact on being beneficial to your life, to creating a more full, healthy, whole, happy life. So that's the purpose of this conversation. But anyway.
I think you're talking about just 2 really key things. It's one, the focus on reality, and the focus on what you can control.
Correct.
So with regards to reality is telling people or informing people and having them realize to not see things, like to see things as they are, but not necessarily worse than they are.
Correct.
Just come to terms.
Yes.
See what it
no,
is,
exactly.
And really face it fully. And then also with control, finding what can they actually do that's tangible that they can control. A sense of control or influence in one's life can build so much momentum, confidence.
Totally.
And especially with health, it's
exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. So I'm going to get a little bit into nutrition science here, just a little bit, like 70,000 foot view. And there's a couple different terms. So specifically what I'm going to talk about today, again, is the gut-brain axis. You might have heard this term. It's been more prevalent in the past 10 years of research about kind of mental health issues. But really what it has to do with is gut health. And when I say gut health, I'm referring to your GI tract, your gastrointestinal tract. And so basically there's a couple different a couple different like terms to understand. So the gut microbiome or gut flora, this is the population of bacteria that is actually living in your gut. So every single person, it sounds super weird, but it's like totally normal. Every single person has this combination, this balance of good and bad bacteria that are living in your gut, and they have purpose. Like they're not just there to, I don't know, help digest it. Like they have serious purpose in terms of connecting to your mental health and how that works. So in the past decade, researchers have become increasingly aware of this thing called the gut-brain axis. And the gut-brain axis is literally, it's your GI tract and your brain talking to each other. It is so, it's insane. Like the body is so amazing, but it's so interesting. So all these bacteria are your GI tract and they're talking to your brain. And what they're talking about is a reflection of your health or what you should be feeling or thinking based on what they're seeing in your GI tract. So here's the definition. So the National Institute of Health says that, quote unquote, the gut-brain axis, GBA, consists of bidirectional communication between the central and enteric nervous system. So just pause for a moment. So central nervous system, everybody knows what that is, but the enteric nervous system, that's actually a nervous system that is within your GI tract. So there's these two nervous systems. That's how this actually works. The two nervous systems are talking to each other, and the enteric nervous system in your GI tract is the one that is being communicated to by the gut flora, the bacteria in your gut. So, and then continuing with the quote, it links emotional and cognitive centers with the brain with peripheral intestinal functions. So it sounds weird, right? So here's what this actually means. It means that what you put in your body, what you eat, and there's very specific foods that I'll get into soon that are going to help boost the balance of good bacteria in your gut and kind of push down the negative ones. That is a direct communication to your brain of neurotransmitters that impact your mood, that impact is serotonin, like stuff that you've heard of that is when people are talking about, I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel depressed, I feel anxious. That's the communication that's coming from your gut, and depending on what you are eating, it's going to tell your brain to feel different ways. So it's wild. But yeah, so they communicate by producing neurotransmitters, which is basically electrical signals to the brain through various pathways. And when there's a negative imbalance in your gut, when there's not enough healthy bacteria, this results in your gut signaling to your brain that you need to be depressed or anxious or stressed.
Wow.
So isn't that crazy? Like,
yeah,
and have you really heard about this? Like a lot. I mean,
well, the detail of it, not necessarily. I mean, always the expression of you are what you eat.
Yeah, exactly.
In a simple way, yeah, if you're eating a lot of junk food, just look at how you feel in a few hours versus if you eat something incredibly refreshing, fruits, vegetables, yes. But for the part where it's also, for me, a lot of the focus I've had now is how do you change your state, which is like your physical state, and how that kind of affects your biochemistry. And of course, the food has a part to do with it. Yeah, my focus was on the food as well as really on the state of the body and how you're moving. But this is showing that it's even more important. There's so much of an emphasis on it. And really what you eat, of course, it's going to sit in your belly, right?
Yep.
And it's going to build, and it's going to affect everything, like you're saying, with the enteric nervous system. I think I'm saying
enteric,
that
yep.
Enteric. I mean, just incredible. I thought there was only one nervous system, but
well, and exactly what you're saying too. There's the specific foods. There's like a very specific subcategory of foods that actually support your gut health, and it's like the fermented foods, like yogurt, kefir, vinegars, kimchi. Those are the ones that really help those bacteria, and then also they thrive off of fibrous foods, so like vegetables, grains, legumes, stuff like that. And there's also, I'm sure you've seen, there's probiotic and prebiotic supplements that I take regularly, and I would encourage everybody listening to take, because that's like hugely important. Those are literally replenishing the bacteria and feeding the bacteria. But I think something to note is that, other cultures, their diets, and when I say diet, I also really don't like the word diet, because when I say diet, I don't talk about, I'm not meaning like calorie restriction. I'm talking about like, the comprehensive list of what you're
Right.
eating. So just to clarify that.
And also in the word diet, I mean, a lot of people don't like it because when they hear it, the first 3 letters.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we doing? I don't want to.
No, exactly. So just to clarify, that's what I'm not speaking about calorie restriction or, you know, anything negative. But anyway, other cultures in their typical diets, they include a lot more of these things naturally. And in the past, like 50, 60 years, Americans have really departed from including fermented foods, fibrous foods, anything that is super beneficial. And instead, we've substituted a lot of our diets with highly processed, highly refined foods that are actually exactly counteractive to these good bacteria. So an inflammatory food, artificial sweeteners, excess alcohol, even fad diets, like when you're actually, to speak of diets in that way, a fad diet, when it's talking about like, eat this and you'll lose 20 pounds in 3 days.
I actually don't even know what a fad diet is.
Oh, okay. So a fad diet is like, it's like when some company's trying to sell you like, here, take this pill and you're going to lose like all this weight, or only eat cabbage soup for 7 days, or like all this stuff that's like, have you not heard of the cabbage soup diet? Yeah, there's all these diets that are like not healthy. That's the point, is that they're either going to give you artificial processed foods or like significantly cut your calorie restriction and your nutrient intake. So that's like when Americans generally are trying to lose weight, they'll go to one of those fad diets, because like it's the idea of instant gratification, of like get skinny quick, essentially. And that it's like we were talking about at the beginning with the definition of health. The pursuit of those diets actually result in a negative imbalance in your gut, which then again is going to impact your mental health, your ability to, you know, like focus on eating good things regularly. So yeah, our culture, I think, again, like we just have naturally kind of departed from that in the past several decades. And I mean, it's also, and there's other factors that are definitely impacting this, but our mental health, like 1 in 4 adult Americans say they struggle with mental health. And there's been a huge rise of that in the past few decades. And so obviously, yes, there's other like factors, like I said, but this is definitely a factor. There's a correlation between how we used to eat, the simplicity, and then now just kind of like, you know, mass production, ingestion of stuff that is not beneficial for your system and is actually creating negative mental health effects.
So what's maybe been the shift then in the past? I think you were saying 40, 50 years, and maybe is it how it's been maybe subsidized, or?
Oh gosh, Bruce. I mean, yeah, I would say yes. Some subsidization probably has to do with it. I wasn't alive 60 years ago, so I don't know, but I've talked to people who were alive 60 years ago, and I think there were just kind of, you know, in some ways a little bit of a different mentality when it comes to materialism and instant gratification, and those two things play very much into diet. So if if you see a Twinkie on the grocery store shelf and you say, I want it now, and then you eat it, that's instant gratification.
I'll tell you, when I was in, I think, what was it, 7th or 8th grade, basically to get to my school, we had to walk just about maybe 7 minutes. But then 3 minutes away, there was a local convenience store, I think called Mini Mart. And nice. Every morning for about, maybe half a year, I would go. I'd get a Twinkie and strawberry, the Nesquik milk. Yes. Wow, those things are so, but just like you're saying, they're convenient, the gratification's there. Yes. I start my day in this state of, I didn't get enough sleep. I'm going to go learn some things I don't want to learn about. Right. Have that Twinkie, total state change. And in the moment, you feel great. Yeah, in the moment, you feel great.
Right, in the moment, yeah.
Later on. But then the next day, you feel not so great. And then to fix that, you take the Twinkie. Exactly. And it's technical, and then it affects your mental health.
Yeah.
Changes
sugar also affects your endocrine system, which we're not going to get into today. But sugar is it also helps with the production of negative chemicals in your body. And it's also highly addictive. But actually, on that point with the whole, I mean, we'll get into this later. with kind of like maybe some suggested policy recommendations. But I'm really big on the kids and school lunches being healthy thing, which I know Michelle Obama was kind of like really trying to make happen. Because if you take all this data and you put it in the public school kind of arena, you're getting all these kids who are doing sugar crash, and that makes it very difficult for them to like learn in a steady way where they can actually retain the information. So I think that what she was doing is actually really smart. I know it got a lot of flack, but I think she was really onto something with trying to kind of educate and emphasize the importance of that. And actually, wait, didn't she follow you on Instagram?
She did.
Does she still follow you on Instagram?
Well, Barry, as I call him, Mr. Barack. He, he's very successful and he does his stuff, but he, she's a one man kind of gal.
So she doesn't follow you on Instagram anymore.
No, I mean, she had followed me. We had like I think for about a little more than a week, and then.
Wait, did you actually like talk to her?
I sent her a message. I didn't get the reply. Got the cold shoulder. That was
Man.
it was really cool because when that happened, I just thought. Well, first I was just sitting. I was just doing some notes from a book I was reading.
Yeah.
And I get a notification saying Instagram Michelle Obama follows you.
You probably thought it was one of those like spam Michelle Obama accounts.
I was looking for the extra underscore, the extra letter.
Yeah.
And then I opened it. I'm like, okay.
Like what?
Wait, what? And then, it was just this whole thing. It was a fun
so funny.
15 minutes of, I guess, Instagram. I don't know how they call it, but no, it was incredible. But like, yeah, to your point, it's crazy how she had this initiative and schools were trying to push this forward. And there's so much stuff. I mean, it's the idea that essentially at its core, and we talk a lot about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
Really is about like identity, the desire to actually, you may want to change, but you don't actually change.
Yes.
Like one thing is, there's a speaker and he went in a room speaking to everybody like, hey, how many people here love change? And everyone's like, yeah, I do. And then he goes, BS. You only love, or like a surprise. You only like the surprises that you want, or the changes that you want that aren't going to force you to change or challenge your identity.
Yeah. It's true. That's a good point.
It's such an issue. So I don't know how maybe we're going with some of the policy stuff, but in schools, how do you learn when your energy level spikes and drops, and drops? At least 3 times a day. It's insane.
Right. No, totally. And we'll get into this later a little bit too, but when it comes to like government policy, there's influences that are not good, that are kind of helping with those policies that are, affecting children and education. And education is like one of the most important things that any functioning society needs. And so I think this plays hugely into it. And I would seriously advocate for changes in school lunches. But anyway, so GutBrain Axis, that's kind of like a basic overview of that. And again, if listeners were trying to take away like small changes that they could apply to their lives, it's something as simple as, purchase some prebiotic and probiotic supplements. They're very inexpensive, like $5 for like a monthly supply. Try to get kefir, yogurt, kimchi, any sauerkraut, any sort of like pickled or fermented food is excellent for your stomach. I drink kefir in the morning sometimes, and I can like tell a change. It's so weird. Like you just feel so much better, even just like physically, not even like with the mental stuff, but.
So is kefir it's like a powder from a plant, or
no? So kefir is it's like a drinkable yogurt. It's like a thinner type of yogurt, and you can get it in like flavored or non-flavored. I would advocate for unflavored just because of sugar content. But if you're trying to ease into it, they have really good flavors as well. But it's basically it's just like a fermented milk drink. So So and then
are incredible. Absolutely.
I'm sorry, say what?
Well, these supplements are absolutely incredible. And I talked with my brother about it on the other podcast really coffee as well. I mean, for me, everyone, it's up to you, do your own thing. Yeah. I haven't had coffee in over a year and I haven't felt lethargic at all. Yeah. Because I'm replacing a morning supplement with something different. Like even before this call, I've had just a 40 ounce of water, cold water, drink it. Sometimes you put in a lemon. If I'm not doing that, I'll have athletic greens, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yep, I do those too. Yep.
Oh, I haven't actually had that for a few days now. I'm in a different spot right now. Man, just like having that little kind of anchor, but that gives you nutrients and wakes you up.
Totally. And the thing with the greens, actually, I do reds and greens and like a fibrous greens. So those actually have a lot of the prebiotic fiber, which is so good for the gut health. So yeah, highly recommend all of that as well. There's also like, you can take fiber supplements as well that are, if you're not getting enough natural fiber in your diet, which again comes from grains, legumes, vegetables. If you're not getting that, then take a fiber supplement. They'll give you like 5 to 10 grams of fiber. And like the daily average amount for just like your average adult is like 25 to 30 grams. So it makes it a lot easier if you're taking just simple supplements like that. And they're really not that expensive too. Like it's you know, if you gave up a cup of coffee and a hamburger every month from eating, you know, out at a restaurant, that's the price of these supplements.
I'll tell you this. I gotta maybe make an episode entirely about just the one thing that you just said that kind of blew my mind. I guess maybe because I'm always just picking and choosing, is like you said, like it's not really expensive, right? And it's really not. And so many times we say, oh, like I can't afford to do this.
Right.
I think we should shift the narrative and say you can't afford not to.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Think about how much you're going to pay in the long term. Just the media, you're paying so much more. I mean, $10.
Would you rather pay for a mental health prescription for years and years and years, or would you rather address it on the front end by paying $10 for a supplement? Like, it's
ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just too much.
No, totally. And also that, before we get into the next section I have here, that's a good point about just like the cost of these things. So I also think that there's a false narrative out there that eating healthy is more expensive than not eating healthy. And when you, even without factoring in the toll that eating unhealthy takes on your body and your mind, your emotions, your spiritual life, that all has a cost as well. But even without that cost, if you're going to the grocery store and comparing, that is a totally false narrative. Some of the cheapest things actually to purchase in the grocery store are the healthiest things: grains, legumes, simple, like unprepared vegetables that you make yourself. So really what it comes down to is it's a little bit more time intensive. Like you can't just throw something in the microwave. And it's a little more time intensive, and it takes a little bit more knowledge of like how to cook things, how to make rice, how to make pasta, how to make legumes or grains. But if you have those factors, or you do the research on those factors, and it's not super hard. I'm not saying super hard. It's just like slightly more of like a investment. It's cost equivalent, if not cheaper, to eat healthy.
No,
so
I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah. So just to encourage people out there, if you're listening to this, like, don't think that you're going to lose money if you're trying to invest in your health. You're going to actually save money, both short term and long term, because of the health costs associated with that.
And to even add on top of that, you're going to save money long term. You're probably going to gain money because you're going to be in a better state. Totally. Your emotional health, your mental health, your physical, spiritual.
Yes.
I mean, it's probably not going to diminish if you're eating healthier or foods that are more nourishing to your body, and you're going to be in a better state. If you're in a poor state, not just state of mind, if you're in a poor state, all encompassing, you're already at a disadvantage right off the bat.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, I haven't looked at like studies on this and stuff, but I wonder if this narrative is really kind of making cyclical poverty worse. Wow. If people who are in poverty are thinking that they can only afford unhealthy food, and then that affects their health in so many different ways, their mental health, their spiritual health, their emotional health, their physical health, and they feel less capable of trying to get out of that cycle of poverty. I think that, maybe that's what Michelle Obama was also trying to do, some of the school lunch stuff, to try to really give people access to an education you can retain, all these different connections that are impacted by your health. So I think that this has huge community implications.
Yes. Yep.
So Yeah.
And with poor health, I mean, just even statistically looking at it, I believe it's 2/3 of the US is overweight. And although this thing is just only, I think, a little misleading just on one component, because if you are measuring BMI, it's saying how, I think it's like my brother-in-law, technically he would be overweight, but he's not. He's ripped. He has a six-pack. He is really ripped, like broad shoulders. So that's maybe a measurement.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently there's a significant amount of the population that's overweight, and I believe it's 1/3 that are obese.
Right.
I mean, that's insanity. Like, the problem used to be access to food. Now it's a problem of, I mean, not putting everything in our mouths. That's what I think it's coming down to.
Yeah. Well, and education about, like, not just restricting calories, but having the right calories, having the right macros, like knowing what you're putting in your mouth to like what you ingest. That's like, it's just everything. It's so important. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, I also, when I was a teenager, like, I didn't know this stuff. I didn't look it up. I didn't research. I took, like, biology and stuff, but it was about your whole body. It wasn't really focusing tons on like what your diet was. And so I never made these connections for years and years. And like my health suffered because of that, absolutely suffered. And now having this other perspective, like the reason why I'm so passionate about this is I can't even describe to you the difference it has made in my personal life of having these changes. And so if people can just experience like even a fraction of these changes, it just makes all the difference in being able to be like a highly functioning, happy member of society. And it's just like, it's so good. I just want to share it with people.
Absolutely. Do you recommend just a quick, maybe a little action step or something someone can do for one meal or for a week or for 5 days?
For sure. Days? Yeah. So like I said, like probiotic supplements, and then also start with kefir in the mornings if you have that as part of your breakfast, or if you don't like dairy products, or if you don't like kind of like the yogurt taste or whatever, if you try like sauerkraut or kimchi, or really, again, like any fermented food, that is a great way to just start trying to rebalance your gut health, and really support the gut-brain axis. So I would say that. And then, oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many things I could get into, but if you are trying to just in general have a more balanced diet, I would encourage you to try to, actually, I sometimes use, if I'm trying to really track macros, if I'm trying to like bulk muscle or do some change specifically, I will track on MyFitnessPal. It's a great app. It helps you track not just, I don't think calories are extremely important. I think it's more about, the breakdown of the fats, the proteins, and the carbohydrates, and the nutrients, how much fiber you're getting, sodium intake, all this stuff. And you can track that 100% just by putting in the food substance on that app. And it's very helpful if you don't have a base of knowledge in figuring this out. This will give you a lot of resources about like, and it gives you the goal. So like, for example, you're supposed to do about 50% carbohydrate, 20% protein, and 30% fat in any given day. That's like the normal thing. And if you're trying to put on weight, you increase the protein on that. You take down a little bit of the carbohydrates and the fat. So there's different like strategies for that, but I would recommend the MyFitnessPal app for someone who's kind of starting out, trying to figure out how can I make small changes for that. And it also allows you to put in, if you have exercise and however many correlating calories are with that. So I recommend that one.
So MyFitnessPal app, and then it sounds at its core, would be more greens and water rich food. And of course, less sugar. I mean, just less sugar in general.
Oh,
and
100%.
Sodium, I think you were mentioning as well.
Yes, sodium and sugar. We don't even, and trans fats, sodium, and sugar are in like so much that you don't realize. If you go to the grocery store, pick out like your normal grocery routine, and then look on the back at the nutrition info. And don't just look at like the breakdown of what everything is going on. Look at the ingredients that are in it, and that'll give you the best idea of what's actually going on. The ingredient at the beginning is what's the highest percentage of what's the input, and it's like decreasing proportional inputs as it goes down the list. So you can really see how much stuff is in there, and a lot of it will surprise you. The number one rule actually that I like to go by is if you try to purchase things that have one ingredient listed on that list, Just get a banana. Just get avocados.
Yep.
Just get like as close to the source as possible is absolutely the best way to go in terms of just the least processed food possible. So yeah, and then I mean, Google is, or whatever browser you use, is an absolute wealth of knowledge.
Oh man.
So if you're, trying to create new recipes, don't be intimidated by it. Just try. Like,
yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I'm not, well, I'll say now I'm a cook. I guess anyone's a cook, right? If you cook at least once or twice. I definitely, like, we have some food subscription that comes to the house, and they have the ingredients and the recipe.
Yep.
And for me, it's always just so overwhelming. Like, I used to even stress out cooking. Really, I mean, I only learned how to cook rice like a year and a half ago. Because for some reason, I just associated so much pain with learning this.
Yes.
My mom would always cook the most amazing rice and beans.
Yeah.
But then
she is a really good cook. I remember that.
She just knows how to do it. Well, it's made with a lot of love. So the love is a more spiritual aspect.
Yes.
But with recently, I thought, you know what? I just got to try this. You follow the instructions. You have the ingredients. You're just putting stuff in.
Yeah.
And that should follow it. And like you're saying, Anna, it's nothing rocket science. I mean, you're not making ratatouille.
No, yeah.
But
that'll come with time. It's all building blocks.
True,
I mean, you start with rice, and then you do rice with cilantro and chickpeas, and then you keep, building on that. So yeah, well, good for you for starting that.
Yeah, I feel very accomplished. And
that's awesome.
I'm working my way up. I'm making. I made lasagna.
Nice.
A couple months ago.
Very nice.
It was in my mind so much more difficult than I thought, but and what's also crazy is how, like, we were talking before about how it's really not that expensive. And it's really not, because if you make, let's say, a bigger batch, like for me, I'll do a lot of meal prep.
Yes.
Rice, beans, vegetables. Those are like the three main components. I cook a nice big batch. I'm great for like 3 days.
Exactly. I know. Yeah.
And the time that you save. So it is, let's say, time intensive. Okay. So if you don't want to cook every day, cook that one larger meal, just proportion it out, and you're set.
Totally.
It's nothing too crazy.
No, yeah, totally. Anybody can do it. All your listeners, just know that you can do it. So I also wanted to mention real quick the aspect that has to do with spiritual health, because I know both you and I think about this a lot. So something that I think is really, tied to food intake and your spiritual health is fasting. And fasting isn't something that we really talk about a lot in this culture, even though there's, for thousands of years, people of many different religions have done it. So that begs the question, like, why do they do it? Why has this been done so frequently? How is this spiritually beneficial? And as a Christian, I value fasting because it's taking a set period of time to deprive yourself of that instant gratification and the comfort of food. And instead it forces you to reflect and pray on like the sustenance that God provides in our spiritual lives. And like Jesus himself fasted in the Bible, in the Gospels, it talks about he used that period of time out in the desert to be close with God. And then in the Bible, like Satan tempts him to eat after that. And Jesus responds by saying that man shall not live by bread alone, but on every word that comes from God. So it's this like idea when you're thinking about food, like in this holistic manner, that food should have its proper place, and that setting food aside for this limited period of time, it can help us reflect on the things we need besides food, such as, and that's so counterintuitive when we're thinking about like nutrition science, like it's all about food. But it's also thinking about the big picture of like food is important, but we also desperately need God in the same way that we desperately need food. And that can actually help us. Food can help us, or setting it aside for that period of time, it can help us grow in relationship to God. And the crazy thing also with this is that there are also so many significant nutritional, physical benefits to fasting. So when you fast, your body, just on the very basic level, your body obviously loses fat, which helps you lower your risk of obesity-related diseases, diabetes, sleep apnea, all this other stuff. So for these diseases, intermittent fasting is, beneficial. I'm sure you've heard that around. That's become something that's decently popular. There's different types of intermittent fasting you can do, and I'm all like for that. But also, so the Mayo Clinic also writes, I have the quote here, that some research suggests that intermittent fasting may be more beneficial than other diets for reducing inflammation, improving conditions associated with inflammation, such as Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, asthma, MS, and stroke. And then also the National Institute of Health notes that with fasting or intermittent fasting, the really important thing is metabolic switching. This means that fasting triggers the body to switch its source of energy from glucose stored in the liver to ketones, which are stored in fat. Ketogenesis, which is that switch, is or the increase of ketones in the bloodstream. That's what you're talking about, energy. That's what that actually is. Ketones are glucose in the bloodstream. So that initiates activity in a variety of cellular signaling pathways known to influence health and aging. So that's crazy. Fasting actually is slowing the process of aging. And then I think that is so cool that that is part of the Christian spiritual tradition, is something that both connects you to God in terms of relying on him for your physical needs, and also in the process of doing that, you're literally slowing your aging. And it also points out that the activity fasting enhances the body's defenses against oxidative and metabolic stress, and initiates the removal or repair of damaged molecules. The impact of ketogenesis carries over into the non-fasting period and can improve glucose regulation, increase stress resistance, and suppress inflammation. So it's just like these physical and spiritual benefits like intersecting with fasting, and I think that's just like really, really, really cool.
Yeah. So would this be 1 day, 3 days?
So yeah, there's different types of fasting. There's I think one of the most popular ones is where it's like the 8-12 is what's called, and this is the intermittent fasting. There's also, I mean, I think in the spiritual traditions, there's like where you have certain, like a week where you only eat during the when it's dark, so like after dusk, before dawn. I'm not sure in other like in Islam or other religions, but but at least in Christianity, if you go through the Bible, there's periods of fasting, so it's like a longer extended period. But I know that what intermittent fasting is, it's you basically, there's different ways of doing it, but the most popular one is you constrain yourself to 8 hours. So you can pick any 8 hours. It can be, from noon to 8 p.m. or whatever that you eat. But outside of that time frame, your body is doing exactly this ketogenesis thing. And there's benefits to that. So
is that also with water as well? Is it water?
Yeah, you do drink water during it. They say you can drink water, coffee, things that don't have, coffee has like 5 calories, I think, in a cup. But it's allowing your body to enter that state of ketogenesis. So I think that, if I would encourage people that if you wanted to give that a try, but then also making sure that you're not just doing that, like if you're doing it, also try to take those hours that you're hungry and that you're experiencing that kind of like desire for food, and think about how God is, he is our source of sustenance and he is our source of fulfillment. It's a really interesting juxtaposition of your physical state and your spiritual state.
Yeah, like you kind of intertwine it's interwoven, the two of them, the physical and the spiritual. And even with like what you're eating as well, it just puts you in a better state that you can be more receptive and really more aware. And I mean, we don't have to go too deep into it, but I had lived in Morocco for about a little more than a year. And whenever I do something, I'm like 100% all in. So I was there living with the family, and I did the Ramadan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Ramadan for the month, and fascinating, the change of the body, and also where you kind of grab energy from different sources, because like you're saying, it's very habitual, and the need to constantly eat and just that instant gratification, when it's put off, you just focus on so many different things as well. And you listen to your body more, and you're not just operating on such an animalistic level. You're more like, okay, the food's not there, what's going to happen now? Like, where do we go from? Incredible. Yeah, definitely recommend. Maybe not a month. And to be fair, I did actually get sick. I think
a month is a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. Like You know, we would have kaskrut, which would be the breaking of the fast at probably like
nice.
7 p.m.
Yeah.
And then fatar, which is the breakfast in Arabic.
Yeah.
But it's weird because we would have breakfast. I don't know if we did it right, but I'm guessing we did. I would be sleeping, and then the woman I lived with, like her and her family, she'd like come up, wake me up at probably I think 3:30 in the morning, just to,
Wow.
like eat. So I'd be sleeping, wake up at 3:30, have this really large plate, and just go back to bed.
So was that like because it was before dawn? Was that
Yeah,
what
it's
they were
before
doing?
dawn, and then it's
Okay.
because it was well before dawn. My thing though
Yeah.
is, couldn't we have done that at maybe 6 a.m.? There's something I'm missing. I think.
That's
Oh, you know
like,
what I think it is? I think because there's the 5 calls to prayer during the day in Islam.
oh,
So
okay.
I mean, I could be wrong. I may get corrected by anyone who is more knowledgeable, but that's what I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
just to your main point, connects you spiritually, and you're
Yeah.
focusing not so much food gratification,
Right.
but really taking a step back. And it heals,
Totally.
so why not?
It literally heals your body.
Crazy. Yeah, it's
No, totally.
because you would think food, come on, like bring it on in, and then
Yeah.
it's just such a change.
I know. Yeah, so it's wild. And then, so I wanted to mention that also. And then, kind
Yeah.
of like the last thing that I wanted to also mention, when we're getting into, so I have this phrase that I like. I don't know if this is something that other people say, but it's the corporatization of health.
Oof.
And this also ties into like kind of some government ethical concerns when it comes to this.
Let's go into it. Let's
Yeah.
talk.
So, okay, so the first point is like the reason why it's so important to be informed as an individual and to have control over these decisions in your life is because we live in a culture where you're just barraged constantly with unhealthy options masquerading as good choices. And again, they're options. They're not, excuse me, they're not forcing you to do this stuff. They're not forcing you have to eat this or you have to ingest this, but it's marketed as a good choice. And so it's very confusing for people sometimes to like say, like, for example, there's, I think Mariah Carey just teamed up with McDonald's to like promote her Mariah Carey menu or whatever. And basically it's giving away a ton of free food from McDonald's. And that is like so bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love McDonald's sometimes. It's actually like really good. Tastes amazing. But I do not eat it. I eat it very rarely because it is so bad for you. So the fact that like we have a celebrity who's a very influential person teaming up with McDonald's to promote this and offering tons of food for free. Like if you go on, it's just insane. There's so much food for free from McDonald's that she's offering. So all I'm saying is like, sure, she's free to do that. McDonald's is free to do that, but individuals have to be informed about the significant impact of diet on mental health. That's really what I'm kind of getting into in this. And the same thing goes for fad diets. I mean, it's always like, you know, really skinny women in bikinis and like jacked guys, like just like hanging out on the beach, like, and then there's like, eat this and you'll look like this. And it's just like,
oh my goodness. Yes.
And it's just like so damaging to like actual, like actual health. And so there's so much in the corporatization where it's like you are getting barraged by all this false information. And if you don't know the truth, then of course you're going to be susceptible to it. Of course you're going to believe like, well, if I eat this, I'll look like that. So I'm just going to eat this.
Yeah, very.
And it's sad. It's like,
yeah, you're associating the two together.
Yeah,
100%.
Totally. And like, you know, pharmaceutical companies, they spend for every dollar they spend developing on research and development on new drugs, they spend $19 advertising.
Wow.
That drug.
19 times?
Yeah. 19 times as much advertising as actually developing the drug. So, you know, and this, on that track too, like, you know, they have medication is pushed as a remedy all the time rather than people adopting these lifestyle changes. And there's an obvious financial incentive for this, for them. And so, you know, we live in a capitalistic society. They're free to do that. But also, it really comes down to the individual knowing. Yeah. The individual knowing that, like, the real facts of your health and then making the decision whether or not you want to pursue that medication. So
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, and
I absolutely, just to that point, if I could just make
yeah, for sure.
With yeah, I mean, for like one analogy that I try to use for, let's say, prescription drugs or anything like that, like let's say if I were to break my leg, yeah, when I break my leg, I'm in pain, I need some kind of support. So, or even just to walk, I may have let's say a crutch. The crutch helps me walk. Sure. Eventually, though, like, because sometimes events happen and we can't automatically just get our bodies in the best state.
No, 100%. Yeah.
You're using a crutch to walk, let's say 6 months to a year. I never broke my leg. Knock on wood. Hopefully I don't. And what happens though is eventually you build up the strength back up and you no longer need the crutch. Now, what worries me is just people I've met, people I know, and the consistent dependency on a lot of the prescription drugs to help them get into a better state. And sure, that's fine. Look, I've also been in this arena. It's definitely necessary. At what point though, let's say you're taking medication, just I'm going to use a typical example for mental health or depression or something like that. How can you be taking this for over 5-10 years? I mean, that's so alarming to me. And it's, you know, we empathize and we understand, but there's got to be some kind of switch, because look, I'm not a doctor on this or anything, but a state change, working on our biochemistry, taking care of the health may not solve it immediately, but it's going to get you in a better place.
100%.
How are we going to it's just, for me, that really bothers me. And yeah, definitely part of the corporatization.
Yeah, it's like they say that there's like one tool. Like I see like health or all your options for health and for recovery as like tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, I mean, that's actually to get into a little bit more controversial subject. So like the COVID vaccine, that's also how I see that. That's like a tool in the toolbox of reducing your symptoms. And people are free to get that if they want to get that, and they should, in my opinion, also be free to not get that if they don't want to. But it's like, why is that mandated when, and even incentivized by like Krispy Kreme offering donuts when like heart disease kills way more Americans per year than COVID, and obesity is the #1 comorbidity with COVID, and no one is talking on either side of the aisle about asking people to adopt healthy lifestyle changes that would like drastically reduce their risk of COVID.
Oh my God.
So
well, I think this is where me and you may, like, regardless of our opinions, is we may really agree. At least, you know, Bill Maher, if you, of course, you know this guy. I actually had the chance to go see him in Baltimore. It was really funny. He's very comedic. And yeah, he talks about that, just how no one talks about health.
Yes. No,
you just don't do it. Like everything, if you, because with COVID, like you're saying, the comorbidity and the #1 cause was obesity related. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because if we're telling like more McDonald's, more just food that is not conducive to your health, and then it's so counterintuitive. I don't know where we go from there, because how do you get people to change?
Well, here's what really I think the heart of the issue is, and this is where it gets like really sad, because I'm not really sure what the change is. And I guess it's like electing new people to some extent, but it's worth noting that 2/3 of the members of Congress received campaign checks from pharmaceutical companies in 2020, and 38 federal senators have $13.4 million in pharmaceutical companies' stock, while they're literally legislating to benefit these pharmaceutical companies. For example, they passed a policy that says that, you know, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson have legal immunity if there's any side effects from the COVID vaccine.
How does that happen, by the way? Because I heard about that. I mean, without going too deep,
they passed. I didn't look at the exact. I could look at the amendment, but they passed that, and it's like how there's a very clear conflict of interest here. I don't understand how people who are elected are able to legislate that gets them returns on their stock portfolios. Like that is, it's so corrupt. The CEO of Pfizer actually stated that they expect a $15 billion revenue from the vaccines by the end of the year. That's a 30% profit, and that's only Pfizer. And get this, Pfizer is the 5th most invested in stock by the members of Congress.
Wow.
The 5th.
And let me ask, when did they start investing? I think would be an interesting question.
A long time ago. So in 2004, there were actually 42 members of Congress who were invested in pharmaceutical companies. Or sorry, 42 senators, just the senators, not even including the House of Representatives.
And the pharmaceutical now, specifically with Pfizer, just, I mean, given with the vaccine and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that increase you're saying was from 2004?
No, so the $15 billion revenue is just from the vaccine mandates. It's just from 2020. Yeah. And but that's only Pfizer again. So I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if like their portfolios or stock portfolios are public, but there's, you know, incredible revenues to be had. And okay, so maybe to be fair, I'm sure some of them have financial managers that they're not probably 100% making the decisions in this.
Yeah. But they're still responsible. I mean,
but they're very responsible. They're legislating to benefit these companies.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really it's corrupt, and and the problem is that like when people get elected, the people who would, you know, want to make these changes are people who are not elected yet. Once you get elected and you have the ability, you know, they say power corrupt. Like absolutely, like you get into this position, and then it would be very difficult if there's an opportunity that's so easy, and it is unethical, but it's so easy to make so much more money and enrich yourself from passing legislation that affects these pharmaceutical companies. It's just like, gosh, to me that it's so sad, because the people who get the short end of the stick are the individuals who are getting 100%. Barraged by the unhealthy options, and it's the pharmaceutical companies, it's the manufacturers of bad food, and it's just so difficult as an individual to see through all of this and to be like, okay, what's like the basic truth? The basic truth is that like I'm responsible for my body, and I need to attend to these 4 areas, and if any of this doesn't fit in to that, then I shouldn't do it. Wow. Like, but that's hard. It's hard when you're constantly getting told every single day. Yeah. You know, and when the government is not helping.
You're trying to live like out of the mold of society and what's really there. And just another point within Congress, at least within the House, I mean, what is the incentive to, like, if you don't follow like the norm or whatever is making you the most money, you're probably going to lose your seat. You know,
right. Like, you'll lose your seat. You'll lose campaign donations, which is, you know, there needs to be significant campaign finance reform with this stuff. You might lose, you know, the leadership's like whatever their, you know, their preferences or privileges. Exactly. You're not going to lose your committee assignment or whatever, but like there's internal stuff that you'll lose, and so. Yeah, like every incentive in the world exists for them to legislate like this, and it's just it's sad. It's screwing over the American people. So.
Yeah, it's very sad indeed. We are I mean, you know, it starts with us. Yeah, it's tough to depend on any figure or authority or just. I mean, really. Yeah. Also, I think it's one thing to know it, but how do you get to know it? Because you can also learn something but not apply any of it.
Totally.
You know, so like someone listening now. So let's be, I guess, maybe more real time. Someone who maybe hears this, or the man you have a conversation with later on, they know this, but then what's that final call to action or that final push or the final pull?
So the final analysis really is, I would just say like, first of all, I think there's 2 aspects. There's what you see, and then there's what you do. Oof. So when you see, like, for example, some advertisement for a drug, or some advertisement for a fad diet, or some random piece of like, if you eat this, it will kill you. Like, just stop for a second and just like, don't believe it immediately. I would just encourage people to be critical thinkers. Go, if you see this and you're interested in it and you want it actually is, that's fine. But go and research a little bit yourself, and don't click the top thing on Google. Like, go or whatever browser you use. I know, right? Go deeper into the issue. Try to find like not what Fox News or CNN is saying. Like, don't just look at the people who also have financial interests in portraying a certain message, but go deeper and try to go to like reliable sources to figure out truth. And then also like talk to the people, talk to specialists, talk to like your doctor, ask, is this something that's actually legitimate or is it not? So I think there's a little bit of critical thinking when it comes to evaluating like the advertising and the messaging that we're hearing. Government policies, same thing. If you hear like, you know, it's just not a good idea to take public health advice from people who are financially incentivized to advocate for certain things. And so it's just take everything with a grain of salt. evaluate whether this is going to be helpful or harmful for you. Everything, not just talking about vaccine, talking about everything. Like, so that's what I would encourage first of all, like, is the seeing aspect of just don't automatically believe everything. Just take everything in, research it for yourself. And then the application part of it, it does take action to be a healthy person. So the areas of your life, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, kind of, you can even write it down. Like, write down, like, where am I right now? And where do I want to be? And what do I need to do to get there? And with a little bit of research and diet adaptations, starting to just like go on walks or join a gym membership or something like that. Don't buy into the mentality that you'll start tomorrow. That's a very prevalent mentality that is difficult. It really hinders people from being able to succeed because they're just constantly pushing it off. And again, that gets back into the instant gratification incentives. So start today. Like, go to the gym today. Go on a walk today. Pray today. There's like things that you can really do now instead of saying I'll do it in the future. Do it now. And so this is a combination of research and action that I would say that would be kind of like the takeaway action items from this. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the research, like the know-how, and then the action, the actual doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, literally do it right now. Momentum, go with it. It's like they say the best time to plant a tree was 20, I guess, or something like the best time I do something was 20 years ago, and second best time is now, or something like that. I always get these quotes messed up.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Research, go do it, because really the person who's suffering the most, and it's not just you who suffers. Like, we think our actions only affect ourselves. Also, they affect, family members, the people we interact with. And what I've noticed, at least the past few weeks, since that event I went to in Florida, the Unleash the Power Within, just morning meditation, doing my athletic greens, cold showers, excellent health, and my interactions with others. The cold showers, I actually got to do it after this. Not too excited, but it's gonna happen.
Best wishes.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh man, it's not too fun. But it's great, and you condition yourself. But then you realize you also have better interactions with others. Your patience is there. And, I'm driving during the day, and not everyone's a perfect driver, myself included. I'm actually quite a good driver, but not the best,
actually, of course. Sorry about that. I'm actually really proud of my driving. One time I cut off a taxi in New York City. And I was like, I have achieved like level 7,000.
That's like, in New York you did this? Oof, okay. Yeah.
Yes! The taxi driver in New York.
No, they're so aggressive. So aggressive.
I know.
And then with doing that, I'm sure you've even experienced, if someone cuts you off, something like this, something happens. And like, the other day, driving in DC gets a little hectic sometimes, although I actually do enjoy it a lot. I don't think it's really that bad at all. Maybe some cutting off, something happens, the person maybe gives a finger or shouts. Immediately our reaction is to get defensive, to go against that, and be like, this person's so evil, so wrong. Literally all I do at that moment, deep breath.
Yes.
I just feel like, oh man, well, we're not perfect. That was a tough scenario. Now, what I imagine though is, what if I was in... And that gets
back to like your influences, not being constantly influenced by what you see or what you feel, but like having your own self-centered first. And that it's all tied in.
Having that own self-center and taking it, just take it. But when you're in a better state with your health, from mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, as you were saying, you already give yourself much better odds at being in a place where you can contribute, not just internally, but to others. And I think that's sort of the crux of it, is sort of the idea.
100%.
Health is really everything. Yeah. Wow. I wasn't expecting to get a master class, but really. I think we definitely did. I think we definitely did. Look, I
had a lot of fun. This was awesome.
Before wrapping up, anything you want to just slip in there or to conclude with? And I do have one last section that we'll work on, which shouldn't be more than a few minutes. But anything else you want to mention?
Sure. No, I think that's good. I think we covered everything now. Sorry. Just remember the GutBrain Axis. I encourage you to go read that more on your own. But yeah, GutBrain Axis.
Okay, excellent. And the last little part we do here, it's incredible because usually there's some other component, but we just really work through something different. But I always like to include, well, actually, before doing that, I'll go to gratitude, which I like to end my episodes just with some gratitude for my guests that came on. So, of course, thank you for coming on, but also thank you for your commitment to learning about different topics that the public, let's say, or most people don't really pay enough attention to. Being someone who, what I value is in the political world, who's able to communicate with people from their side, the other side, and a third, fourth, fifth, sixth side. Super crucial. And I also try to do it a lot myself. So yeah, just thank you for commitment to knowledge, reaching out and growth, and contributing more than yourself. Always incredibly valuable when people do that. So thank you. Now, the last part we like to conclude with is one of my favorite parts, called the nugget of wisdom to elevate like Zeus. So really quick, story of Zeus. He was born with him and his siblings.
Goes for you, Bruce. Same goes for you. I appreciate that about you.
You're so sweet. You're so sweet. And I think there's a little bit of a lag. So we'll try to see what we can do. So the final part, just nugget of wisdom, elevate like Zeus. Story of Zeus is born of Cronus and Rhea. Cronus, his father, viewed him as a threat, and his siblings. So tried to eat all his siblings, but Zeus was able to escape. Yeah, was able to escape, and basically he ended up at the bottom of life and such a tough and difficult situation. But he manages to work his way up, overcome adversity, gain knowledge, gain experience, and ends up becoming Zeus that we all know about. So what would be your nugget of wisdom for someone that you want to leave them off with that could help equip them to elevate like Zeus did from a place of whether lack of knowledge, lack of resources, or lack of ability to become their best self and to become someone of value to the world? Okay, before you continue, I think there's it lagged quite heavy. So there's about a 10-second pause.
Service.
Oh,
so
there we go.
I think the most important thing that you can do in life really is service. And okay, so I was saying service. So it's very counterintuitive, but when you serve, you actually become like the best version of yourself that you possibly can be. And so putting others' interests in front of yourselves, and I mean, that's a very Christian principle, but putting others' interests in front of yourselves and making sure that every day you're looking for ways to serve and love other people. And I mean, all of what we've talked about today is very important in terms of having knowledge and really critically think about the world. But if I could just put into one final message for people, like, yes, pursue that knowledge base that we've talked about, but really the nugget of wisdom is look for ways to serve other people, and you will have much more satisfactory and full of a life.
Well, excellent. Very well said. And hopefully that even runs through. And yeah, serving others, doing something larger than yourself. I really can't attest to that enough. Miss Anna, thank you so much. Muchas gracias. I don't know why I'm saying Spanish, but you speak Spanish very well. So, you know, thanks so much. And the lag was a little tricky, but the content's still there. Valuable. Take action. Learn about your health. And I can't wait to do this again next time, where we're going to focus more on Anna Dove. Very excited for it.
De nada. Sí, ahora sí.
Sí. All right, everybody. Adios. And ask big questions and live with passion. Always. Adios.